Good evening. Welcome to the Municipality of South Dundas Council meeting for Wednesday, May 27th, 2026. I'd like to have a resolution to call this meeting to order on May 27th. This council meeting of Municipality of South Dundas now be open at 6 p.m. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. No closed session tonight. Confirmation of agenda. Any amendments, deletions, additions to the agenda? Clerk LeBrun.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Broad. We'd like to move item 11, discussion, up to the top of the meeting just after delegation. So item 11 would then be item 7.
Very good. So we'll move the discussion items ahead on the agenda to deal with them earlier. Yeah, we'll just do both and then we can clear it out. Okay. See any other amendments? Seeing none, I have a motion. Let it be resolved that the Council of Municipality of South Dundas approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none, adoption of minutes. Are there any errors or omissions to the regular council meeting minutes of May 13th, 2026? Seeing none, I have a resolution that the following minutes be adopted as presented. May 13, 2026, regular meeting. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Delegations. Okay, so 6A, we're going to start off with Sunshine Sky delegation. We have Naomi Blunder and Graham Shannon with us here tonight. Welcome. Thank you for traveling to South Dundas.
It's on now. Okay. Hi. Thank you. It's good to be back in such a beautiful weather. So my name is Nama Blonder. I'm an architect. Graham Shannon here is the owner's representative. We're here to present to you today, mayor, council, members of the public, staff, our design vision for a 56-acre parcel of land and ask for blessing, approval for the design direction that we are taking here today, specifically on street design. Next slide. We started designing the site with a technical requirement that we wanted to make sure it's treated as an asset, as a landscape asset, what we call the green-blue spine you see in the central, the stormwater pond, and continue it with a green spine with 2 small parkettes. Next slide. Making sure that we will have pedestrian connections to celebrate this feature. Next slide. And the actual servicing and proper streets will be in those U-shape loops to make sure that we satisfy fire requirements, servicing, to allow a forward motion movement. So you're, let's say, fire trucks, no plowing, you come to the U and you just exit it. No backing, no turning over. Very simple structure, which every U will serve no more than around 12 to 15 homes. So very, in comparison to a typical subdivision, traffic impact, this is very, very low vehicular impact and domination of the public realm. Next. And so this is kind of a diagram. Actually, you can do one more click. This is a diagram representing this concept. You can see the orange, the U loops, which will be the street design that we are referring to, with the pedestrian connections to really allow a pedestrian what we call people-first, human-centered design. Next. So in fact, this plan is outdated in comparison to the diagram because we had, I believe this is now probably round 5 of us working with staff on variations, but I still wanted to show the orientation of the houses and the concept. And if you click one more You can see this is a rendering that we did. What the street design is actually allowing us, because you're only serving such a low number of homes at a time, you can have the benefit of designing a street that looks and feels different, which is our intention here. We want to design something that will look and feel different to everyone that, visit the community. We don't want yet another something that follows the typical subdivision manual. Next, one more click. And why is that? So we are really looking, and this is an image that I love showing. It's from London, and we're not trying to make it European, and we're not trying to go back to medieval days, but we ask ourselves what happened to that quality of charming, smaller streets. You can continue clicking. There are more residents that put people first, and with a design quality that every one of us will go and travel and see this and say, I wish we had that in Canada. So we find this inspirational with the appropriate adjustments. Next. And why is that? Because we know that it has, I would like to lay out the advantages to the municipalities. To the municipality, it's working with more what we call compact streets. You can click again to the opportunity. We are asking to work with a more of compact street section than the typical, but it has many advantages. Working with the environmental benefits that it brings around less asphalt, stormwater management, but also it creates a more balance between people, services, and car access. We believe that design could shape behavior, and if we want to create a kid-friendly environment, senior-friendly environment, those streets will signal the driver, you need to slow down. Not because we put signs, but because the street itself will create that atmosphere. Next, please. I covered that. Next. I covered that as well. And I just wanted to also take a moment to thank staff for working with us in collaboration. I just want to say I work with many municipalities. I do not take it for granted that we were able to hold that design charrette when everyone was around the table and giving us technical feedback. I just wanted to show a few variations without getting into too much technical, but if it's here, if you have questions. So this was the original. And then one of the rounds of variations was to already adjusting it to just the U shape, making sure that there are no dead ends. Again, this is an example of one of the feedback points that we got from staff. Next is another one about the townhouses. Oh, sorry, it's okay. The townhouses and snow removal and parking. Anyway, this is just to show that we had a lot of back and forth with staff and how much we appreciate this collaborative approach. And to say, we're not here to talk about density today or the zoning or anything of that kind. We're here to discuss the design quality that we want to bring and make sure that we're heading in the right direction. And I do believe that we will have more changes as we go along. So this is not written in stone in any way, but that's why we're here today. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming and continue to share it. I know you spent time with us. You spent time with the staff, and your ideas continue to move forward as we talk about snow and all the things that as we get in Eastern Ontario and some of the attributes that our staff have brought forward. So I think that's great to keep working together. I think it's great. Obviously, another area in our urban settlement that has a development potential to move ahead. Some of the great things I like about the walking paths and the design of some smaller streets, and it could attract certainly a wide range or a specific age group and type of resident for sure. So I'm excited to see as this continues to grow and as we move the project along. One of the other things I like is the connections, because we do know we have developments to east and west, and I know the groups are working together to make sure we have interconnections between those, and we work together. Water, wastewater, all those type of things. That's important that they connect overall. So I know these projects take a long time, and if my development friend to my right here, Deputy Mayor, these take a long time, and it's great as we just keep moving one step at a time. So happy that you're here to share some of the next steps to that for sure. But I will open it up to the council for comments and questions. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Thanks for listening to staff and when we met in Toronto as well, and taking back some of the key points. And I don't recall if I asked this when we met the last time, but just looking at it, I think it's slide 5. If you can just go back to you, please. Keep going. A couple more. Yeah, that one's fine. So just noticing on this slide again, and I can't recall if we had this discussion. We've got the main road that kind of loops around the whole subdivision and connects into it, and then you've got all these interior private streets that you're designing to. Is the intent for the private streets that's going to be based on a common elements agreement, and your residents are going to be owning and operating the streets, or are they private streets that we, the municipality would take over?
None of this is private.
Okay, so then they're not private then. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Personalized, I guess.
Well, yeah, no,
yeah, not private. Yeah, more
okay.
personalized.
Because there is a distinct
Yes,
difference between
good question.
public streets and private streets, and getting into common elements, as you know, and residents owning the streets and maintaining them, all that. So thank you for that clarification.
Public streets.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, through Mayor Broad. Thanks for the presentation. I really do like the design, especially like the houses that are in the center, where like it's basically like the front door of your house goes onto a sidewalk rather than a street. So it's kind of a pretty cool design. It's going to be a little different, I think, to get used to in our area, because I don't think we have anything like that in our area. Anyways, I'm excited to see it. So the question that I did have, however, is that where your property is located, right directly to the east of that property, we have another potential development that is going to be moving forward, which is going to result in 2 entrances very close together off of a county road on a corner. Would there be any way that the 2 groups, you and the other developers, could work together to do one common entrance off of the county road instead of having 2, say, 30 meters apart? Would you be willing to do that? Or is that even a possibility?
There are so many things that we're going to work with our neighbors on. I feel like this is not the hardest one to solve. That's a very good point. Nothing committing at the moment. I'm not the right expert to address the road distances, but absolutely a point to take back to the drafting table.
Okay, I know that we're not approving subdivision agreements yet. We're not at that point, but just before it gets to that point, I'd like to put that out there that I can see that's, I'm not going to say it's a safety issue, but it would be just really nice if both groups could work together to have one larger entrance rather than 2 entrances, like I said, like 30 meters apart off of a major highway.
CEO Don.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, great question. That wasn't a planted question, I swear. Actually, today with Mr. Shannon being in the area, it was a great opportunity to, through the municipality, facilitate a discussion between his team and the development team for the adjacent property and start to talk about some, I'm going to say, common items of municipal infrastructure that they may look at some opportunities for, and the access was actually one of those items that came up as an opportunity. So, municipality is going to facilitate in every way possible to make things as efficient and productive as we can for the developers. And I'm confident there'll be more to come in terms of discussions with council. But point well taken, and that was on our radar today. So good stuff.
Yeah, we have our planner and the county planner both here hearing that, so that's great, Councillor Smith, appreciate that, yes, noted. Correct. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, and thank you. And that's a great question regarding accesses. I think on this type of development and the neighbors to the east-west, whatever direction it is, you're probably going to want two accesses, maybe a little bit further apart, because if you only have one access to and from, that may cause more of a traffic issue than having two. But certainly having 3 or 4, that certainly does not make sense. So it's a great point that you bring up.
Very good. Awesome. Any other questions, comments? Oh, very good. I think, oh yes, see you, Han.
Thanks. If I may, I'll just turn it over to our planner just to kind of talk about
Sure.
the next steps,
Okay.
because it is going to be a little bit of a different process than we've normally seen for subdivisions, because it is unique design concept that's coming forward. So we want to make sure, ideally, that the team that's here, they have the confidence to continue to move forward in a way that'll work for the municipality. So I'll throw it over to Stephanie if that's.
Ms. Moore.
Good evening. So basically, based on the delegation this evening, I intend to bring back a report for council to consider support, in principle anyway, of which the outcome would then give Mr. Shannon and Smart Density the direction to sort of move ahead with additional investment in engineering and any additional required studies or reports. So then the process would sort of play out as it normally would. They would submit their application to SD&G County, including that required public meeting and a report following that submission, which would include that sort of request for a resolution of support. After the draft plan approval, that's typically when the detailed design sort of comes into play. But since this formal design would deviate from the subdivision and site plan design guidelines that we just had recently revised, staff would bring back a report ahead of the subdivision agreement to make sure that that council is aware of a lot of those deviations ahead of getting to that subdivision agreement phase.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Moore? No, I think that's excellent. Thank you, Ms. Moore, and looking forward to the next steps, for sure. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks, Graham. Thanks, Naomi, for traveling to South Dundas. Appreciate it very much. Okay, next on our agenda, we have STEO, so Student Transportation for Eastern Ontario. We have Mark Gossett and Janet Murray with us.
Hello.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and present some information about student transportation. My name is Janet Murray. I'm the General Manager CAO of Student Transportation of Eastern Ontario, and I have with me Mark Gossett, Operations Manager. So hopefully between the two of us, we can bring some valuable information and answer any questions that you may have. In terms of discussion points, if I could get you to advance, thank you. We tried to be responsive when the South Dundas team reached out to us as relates to some of the questions that you are no doubt getting. We tried to be responsive in terms of what we're going to present to you tonight to speak to some of those, as well as some of the operational realities and challenges that we're currently facing as we look at some new funding parameters and operational parameters from the Ministry of Education. So tonight we'll speak to a high-level overview of transportation updates. We'll talk about what some of those challenges are that we're currently encountering. We're going to give you an idea of some of the supports that we're offering, because I'm sure you're getting questions or will be getting questions from families as relates to what changes are forthcoming and how do they navigate them, and hopefully we can provide some support to you in answering those questions as well as to families directly. And I love the idea of exploring opportunities for municipal collaboration, and certainly in any conversations we've had with your team thus far, they have been very lovely and collaborative and supportive, so we are very engaged in being collaborative as we move forward through changes. So here we go. Just as a high-level overview, STIO, if you don't know, is that I'm sure you've heard about us from some of your constituents, Transportation Consortium. We service CDSBEO and UCDSB, so we are a consortium servicing 2 coterminous school boards, the public board as well as the Catholic board. What that means is we coordinate transportation across a very large rural region. We provide transportation to approximately 30,000 students on any given day. In an area about 12,000 square kilometers on vehicles that travel approximately 120,000 kilometers a day. So logistically, it's reasonably significant. Student safety is our guiding principle and remains the guiding principle in all of our operational decisions, including the decisions that are forthcoming, and even on those inclement weather days that I'm sure you hear about. It is our guiding principle. In terms of challenges, so I'm sure you hear about some of the challenges that impact on student transportation and our ability to provide a continuous level of service. Province-wide driver shortages do continue. We have seen some improvements in the last 2 years. This has probably been our year of greatest improvement, and by that I mean we have experienced a lesser rate of bus cancellations. That doesn't minimize the challenge. We do know that every day that a bus is canceled, that is an impact to a family. We can talk about what some of those numbers are, if you like, after the presentation, if you have some specific questions about a region of service or how we manage that process. Rural transportation systems do face unique pressures, and that we do cover a large geography with a singular vehicle. But bus cancellations are always a last resort for STIO. So where there is an opportunity to even run a vehicle late within a reasonable window, we do afford bus operators the opportunity to do so. Where routes can be triaged, for example, and doubled up. Do you want to speak to that, Mark, what that might look like?
Sometimes if we have an operator that knows their area quite well, we can break a run into 3 or 4 pieces. This bus will get this little chunk, that bus, so we split them up that way to help get kids to school.
So ideally, we're never looking at the path of least resistance when it comes to cancellations, but nevertheless, we do understand the cancellations do impact families, and we are very actively engaged in opportunities to decrease those numbers. A number of years ago, when we implemented bell time changes in consultation with our school boards, we were able to take over 100 vehicles off the road. That had a significant impact on the level of cancellations that we experienced, because we were able to service the same number of students with a lesser number of vehicles and a lesser number of drivers required. So that saw some gains as relates to the cancellation front. Unfortunately, in the throes of that, we saw a shift to a provincial funding model, which moved from a per-student method of funding to a per-vehicle method of funding. And so as we took vehicles off the road, we saw funding decrease, and now we are juggling a different challenge, such as the nature of transportation. In terms of provincial common reference standards, you may have heard, communication is just beginning in this regard, that STIO is aligning our levels of service with the Ontario Ministry of Education standards of service. And so that means that families are experiencing a change, and some families who were able to access transportation in the 25-26 school year will not have access to transportation in the 26-27 school year. We know this is not popular information to deliver. We're trying to get in front of it as much as we possibly can. We're hosting information sessions, and we'll talk about some of the things that we're doing to at least be transparent and supportive in the face of change. These are standards already used across much of Ontario, and these are the common reference standards that the Ministry of Education utilizes to determine student eligibility. Currently, on most fronts, STIO actually offers a more generous level of service than that for which the Ministry of Education funds, and therein lies a challenge for us. So in terms of moving to provincial common reference standards, it was not a decision made lightly, but we felt it was important to focus on the sustainability of transportation, and that meant applying the common reference standards as supported by the Ministry of Education. So at a very high level, on the next slide, what does that mean? And this is really the piece of information that families want to know, right? So our current eligibility standards, this means like how far away from the school does a family live in order to be eligible for transportation? And these are our current levels of service. Your younger folks, JK to grade 3, 800 meters. If you're beyond that distance from school, a family would be eligible to access transportation in those grades. Grades 4 through 6, 1.6 kilometers, and grades 7 through 12, which we're calling the secondary panel here, would be 2 kilometers. Provincial standards look a bit different, as you can see. So for our JK, SK, our little kinder humans, there's no change in terms of eligibility. So that's very positive for folks just entering into the system. 800 meters remains the threshold. This is where you're going to see a big change, though, for some of our little guys. So grades 1 through 8 is 1.6 kilometers, which means our grades 1 through 3 are seeing a significant change and that their walk distances are in fact doubling. Interestingly, our 7s and 8s are actually getting a richer level of service under the Common Reference Standards, moving from 2 kilometers to 1.6, but our grades 9 through 12 are seeing a big change, moving from 2 kilometers to 3.2. So it's a lot of information to take in. We have tons of resources on our website to help support and navigate families through the change, but at a very high level, you know now who you're going to hear from when it comes to the changes, because these are the folks who are going to be impacted by the Common Reference Standards. There's a few other components of the provincial standards that impact on student transportation. We're not going to see a significant impact to our families as relates to them, but it may be something you hear about, so we thought it was of value to share it with you. The provincial standards have also established updated maximum ride times. Currently, STIO endeavors to provide ride times no greater than 1 hour where possible. Having said that, we have a very rural geography. Sometimes it's over an hour, just as the crow flies, you start to pick up little humans along the way, and just by virtue of the fact of where you live in relation to the school, you may be more than an hour. So we do have some guiding parameters in place where no greater than 3% of students should be riding more than an hour. We still feel very strongly like that is a good principle to apply, even in the face of changing expectations at the provincial level. So the provincial common reference standards suggest that in elementary school, a 75-minute maximum ride time would apply, and a 90-minute maximum ride time would apply for the high school panel. We don't foresee pushing towards those ride times. We don't foresee pushing towards any standard where there are actual logistical or safety gains to be made. So we're not anticipating that you're going to receive an influx of questions or concerns about increased ride times. We anticipate that we've already sort of optimized on that level of efficiency, and we don't anticipate significant changes. You see, would you say that's fair to say?
That's more than fair.
More than fair. Okay. So what the heck are we doing in order to support families? We know these are big changes. Well, I think the main thing that we're doing is having conversations like this. When we are asked to speak to the changes, we will always speak to the changes, be that to councils, be that at municipalities, be that to the media, to schools, or to families directly. We are creating on our website a ride request hub, we're calling it. It's a one-stop shop. We're trying to facilitate this and make it as easy as possible for families who need transportation in the face of changing eligibility parameters to access it or at least apply for it. And those would be circumstances where medical needs or exceptional family crisis circumstances or hazard or safety concerns would compel a family to ask for accommodations. So there's one spot where families can go in order to access that information. We are applying a consistent hazard assessment tool so that when we get concerns about a walk path or a walk to stop situation, we're always using the same criteria in order to assess that in a fair and transparent manner. And we're happy to share that tool so everybody can see what we're utilizing in order to make those judgment calls. We're hosting live information sessions. So Mark and I did our a little show last Thursday live. We had over 100 participants in that call. And again, we're doing it all again tomorrow. It's a virtual session. Anybody is welcome to register if you're interested in getting all of the nitty-gritty about what these changes look like and what the path of support might look like for families. We will also be recording that session and posting it to STIO's website. So if you can't attend or if you have something better to do on a Thursday evening, you can always go back and have a look. You can also refer families who ask you questions about the changes to that information session. We try to be super comprehensive and cover all of the questions we could anticipate coming from families. We also collect questions at the point of registration so that if somebody has a specific question, we do our very best to answer it in the context of those sessions themselves. Another strategic element that we're introducing this year is typically STIO would sort of go live, we call it, with our bus stop information late in August. It seems late, I get it. We always grapple with whether it's better to offer the information early, recognizing there are an influx of changes that come as office admins return to schools and update student information, or whether it's better to offer it a little bit later and a little bit more accurate. So we conferred and we discussed and we felt that recognizing the potential volume of changes for families, we would go live earlier, ensuring that we are available to support all of the questions and changes that might be forthcoming. So where we would typically go live anywhere between sort of August 15th to August 25th, we're going to go live at the end of July this year, and all of that information will also be shared to STIO's website and in the context of the information sessions tomorrow. That gives families about an additional month to get information about their bus stop location and their eligibility, such that if they need to pivot or make changes or have contact with schools or supports or daycares, they will have a greater lead up to September in order to do so. And then we are available throughout summer for support and communications. As we go live with eligibility information and bus stop location information, we will again host another live information session. I suspect what we'll do there is walk people through the actual tool to access the information so that they know how to do it, and we'll also walk people through the request a ride process so they understand what parameters may be contemplated under a changing eligibility environment and how they could request accommodations under those changing parameters. And we will continue to make ourselves available for these types of conversations as they arise, as well as being present at community events like Touch a Truck, where families are bringing young children and may have questions as relates to transportation. So we're not going anywhere. No vacation this year.
I know.
Okay. Municipal collaboration opportunities. So, I mean, in the face of challenges, opportunities do arise. I believe that to be quite true. And I think as we're looking at children potentially walking greater distances, possibly roads being more congested with parent traffic, schools being more congested with parent traffic, as families drop children off rather than being driven by school buses, there are opportunities here, I think, for us to confer about the best and safest and most supportive way to do this. So we are open to your ideas, to discussions around sidewalks and crossings, traffic calming strategies and signage, which we already work very closely with municipalities as relates to the use of signage and traffic calming strategies. Safe walk route planning. So sometimes there are walk paths that need to be maintained that haven't been. Can we talk about what that might look like? Hazard review collaboration. So we have a tool. Maybe it could be better. We have certainly created it mindfully in collaboration with safety studies in the area, in collaboration with the Ministry of Education's parameters around hazard review, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect, and it doesn't mean that it couldn't be better, and it doesn't mean that we're not receptive to feedback. And then community safety initiatives. So there is an opportunity for education around active travel as folks find their way, and little humans find their way onto the roads who may not have been there before, or walking greater distances than they're used to walking. So as those safety initiatives arise, STIO is committed to being a partner in ensuring that we are there to support families to the best of our ability. Thank you for your time. Student safety remains our priority, even and especially in the face of change. We do appreciate the opportunity to continue working collaboratively in support of students and families across the region, and we certainly welcome questions now, if that suits, but also continued dialogue after the fact.
Great. Well, thanks, Ms. Murray and Mr. Gosset for your presentation and for coming tonight.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's multiple questions and comments. I'll kick off with a few, turn it over to my team. Just on the Pocky's slide 37, eligibility criteria, you talked about the provincial government now pays by bus versus student. Is that correct?
Yeah, so
It's
the
not-
Ministry of Education introduced a new funding formula in the 23-24 year, and there's been a bit of a slow implementation. And what's happened is the philosophy behind the funding formula is that it is a pay-per-vehicle funding
Vehicle.
formula. That's
Very-
boiling it down to
very good.
very brass tacks, but
Okay.
essentially, yes.
So then, with the change in criteria, how many vehicles less do you now need?
We don't suspect we'll need a lot less, we'll need smaller.
Smaller, so
20 passengers versus 72s.
very good. Yeah. So the savings comes with the size of the vehicle.
There are many components, so mileage is another component. So
Sure.
a lot of it comes to us from a perspective of we're trying to balance our expenses and trying to maximize funding, right? So we don't want to remove a significant number of vehicles from the road in a way such that our funding ultimately reduces. So we don't
Yeah,
foresee a significant number of reductions in the number of vehicles, but we may find efficiencies as relates to mileage, vehicle size, and type of vehicle that's being utilized, yeah.
Very good, because the question arises then, you can continue with your standard no matter what the provincial standard is if the vehicle of the same size was still traveling those roads. Meaning you wouldn't have to reduce the length away from the school if the bus was still driving by there that had the capacity of the bus.
The challenge becomes, we are in the face of a funding gap. And so it's very difficult to speak to the funder, the Ministry of Education, when we are not applying the common provincial reference standards. So there's a lot that STIO is currently doing to find efficiencies. Removing transportation services from families is the last thing that we ever want to do, which is why this funding formula was introduced in 23-24. And it's only now that the board has said, look, I think what we really need to do is look at ensuring that our standards of service delivery match those that the funder provides actual funding for. So it's very difficult for us to go back and say, hey, look, we've gone to competitive procurement because that's on our menu as well. We have found efficiencies wherever they can be found if we haven't actually applied the common reference standards for which the ministry funds.
Very good. And just one more, and I'll pass it over. Certainly, and you captured it on the second last slide. Maintenance standards in the villages, obviously of sidewalks and snow plowing, all that is a part of the situation that's now arisen without the school bus pickups and or those stops. So sure, we'll talk more about that. But I'll turn it over to the council team for questions or comments at this time. Yeah, Councillor Ward.
Thanks, Mayor. So I'm partly the reason why you're here this evening. So thank you for coming because I had a lot of questions. So I did attend your session the other week there. So thank you. I think a lot of parents are also going to be very thankful for that information session, and the transparency is really appreciated by a lot of people because I think there's a lot of confusion on how that works. Sure. So just some things. So I'm really big on equal access to education, right? So if you remove transportation for certain families, that means they may not have access to equal education for their children. Meaning, even if their parents are going off to work at 6, 5 in the morning, and they're not there to walk their children to school, so they're comfortable with letting them get on the bus, but not necessarily letting them walk the new distance that's outlined. So that's problematic for me because I do think too, with the Ontario government mandating students to be at school, that's their new standard, right? So you have to be no more absences unless it's absolutely required. It's a little bit conflicting to me because now we have the province saying you need to be at school, but there's not enough money to get you there. So there's a really big gap there in my mind. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you here this evening is to hear that. Yep. And then also ask how we can advocate on your behalf. And maybe it's not advocating for STIO, but advocating for transportation for students to have equal access to education. I do not feel that this is an issue in a city. I strongly don't think that. I do think it is a rural issue. And I do think that there are probably some ways we internally and in our municipality can sort of help. But again, this is a provincial requirement. Like, we are now going to be faced with maintaining sidewalks or building new sidewalks or crosswalks, or like, these are things that are not normally the responsibility of the municipality to get students to school. But I also think I want all of our children to get to school safely. So just some things for us to think about, I think. One of the things I was wondering is if perhaps we could maybe get a hold of the hazard assessment tool and then just apply it to our GIS map to see where those hazards are, and perhaps a report can be brought back to this council, next council, just to identify those areas. So in case there's ever a budget request, that we understand why, regarding transportation, so sidewalks, roads, et cetera. And then, yeah, I think one of the other obstacles is obviously your driver shortage, which I can understand is also related to your funding. I'm sure not everyone wants to drive 72 kids down the road to school for, what is it, it's 90 minutes now? So I definitely wouldn't want to do that. So I think the other thing too is perhaps the staff can reach out and find, maybe just communicate with you on how we can advocate on your behalf to help those two items. Because I think Councillor Smith and I had this quick discussion, because our children were impacted this year as well from driver shortage. And we understand, I think we collectively understand why, but again, let us be your resource to speak to the province and let us advocate on your behalf, because we can't be the only rural municipality that is facing this challenge. And of course, I think we all want our children to get to school safely. And I think that's your obligation and what you're trying to do. So
yeah.
I appreciate that and I appreciate you coming. So thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Through you, Mayor Broad. Yeah, just to echo some of the comments that Councillor Ward made. If we were to apply like the provincial standard, like 3.2 kilometers, so 2 miles for a child like in higher grades to walk to school, like we're getting really outside of, like we're outside of the villages of Iroquois and Morrisburg. Like we're gonna have children walking up and down Highway 2 to, like, if we were to follow that standard to the T, like that's really not safe. Like now I could see like a few miles within the town, you have city streets, you have sidewalks everywhere. Like it just doesn't apply here. Like it's not safe.
That's where this hazard tool will come in.
Yeah.
It takes in the type of highway, speed limit, sidewalks or no sidewalks, that kind of thing, and that would be made a hazard.
Yeah. And the other thing was just to get back to the driver shortage. I know myself, I have some data here that my wife and I tracked over the course of the winter with like our routes and stuff and bus cancellations and stuff. I don't really know if this is really the time to bring it up, but we had, I'm going to bring it up anyway. So so my children, my 2 older kids going into Seaway did not have a steady bus driver on their route, I believe, until a month ago. Mm-hmm. And there was a period from December till March. There was an 11 school week period there, take it the 2 weeks for Christmas, that in that 11-week period, we had 8 cancellations outside of snow days. So the snow days were on top of that. And I have my 2 younger children attending St. Mary St. Cecilia. And in that same 11-week period, there were 6 cancellations going into that school outside of snow days. So that's a lot. So if you add your snow days on top of that, like there's 1 or 2 days a week that the kids are not going to school. And if they're only going to school 3 of the 5 days a week, I hate to say it, the children just develop this attitude like, well, who cares about going to school? Like nobody else cares if I go to school. You know what I mean? Like it's just like it's tough, right? And I hate to see that. And I know that the driver shortage, like it's an issue. Like I realize that. Maybe it's getting better now. Maybe, I don't know, but I think I know what the answer is. And the answer is, of course, like we need more provincial funding so that we can put the pay up. So that's the answer. And I've had the same conversation with Nolan Quinn, and I don't know if it's getting any better. I don't think the pay has, but it's like, that's the answer. That's what the answer is. So.
You're quite right. And like all things, it's multifaceted. So where STIO is able to advocate, there's actually a number of things that can create a bottleneck in a human going through the training process to become a driver. And so we did identify that there were some issues with the fail rate that was occurring once the testing became privatized versus public. So that spurred on some advocacy and we saw some changes, I think, some positive changes, where we saw the rate of pass increase. There were issues with medicals. There were issues with vulnerable sector checks where things sort of just got lost in the world of, the bureaucratic system of processing all of these things. So, and what happens is you'll have a candidate who's eager and interested, and then throughout this waiting period and these, hoops, which are very legitimate hoops we want people to be jumping through, but potentially could do it in a more expeditious manner where we're not losing them to other opportunities. So there are a number of things happening behind the scenes, which I think helped. Provincially speaking, some of our neighboring consortia have canceled routes on a permanent basis, which is not to say, hey, you should be lucky, we've only had 6. That's not what I'm saying in the least, but it is a significant issue. We are mindful and aware of it. Certainly the spare driver issue can be a challenge just in that you lack the continuity of having the same face behind the wheel every day. That is a little bit part and parcel of the triaging. So to avoid a cancellation, is it better to have somebody, a skilled somebody, mind you, but somebody drive the bus who may not necessarily be the permanent bus driver, rather than to cancel it. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but we're very receptive to feedback and recommendations to support filling those seats. It is a difficult, challenging job, which is probably not compensated the way that it needs to be.
We currently have operators bringing drivers in from Niagara, Toronto, Southern Ontario, just to help cover routes. Where they have a surplus down there, they put them up in a hotel room, pay them 8 hours a day and feed them.
I got a, go ahead,
so
Councillor Smith.
So it's, I don't think, I can't fix it, and probably even you guys can't fix it. I mean, the answer is it needs more money, and I mean, every time I see Nolan, I just keep bringing the same thing up over and over. It's my number one thing, I guess. But I mean, we have to get the kids to school. If I've talked to a few of the teachers at Seaway. I still remember walking into the orientation class whenever my oldest child went to Seaway for the first time, and I still remember one of the teachers said at that meeting, they said, get the kids to school, we'll figure it out. And we have to get the kids to school. Whether, like, we can't control what the parents do, but hopefully we can control the school buses getting them there. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. You think of our next closest school, North Dundas. They would not have one student that would walk to school. Right. Not one. Right. So where here we have a whole urban center, and then kids may choose other schools now. Still close enough. They wouldn't want to ride for an hour versus a 2-minute walk, but they may do that, right? Depending on their situation, right? So then they choose different schools, and that's a whole pupil economic review problem that arises again. And so it just continues to compound and compound over and over again on that. I thought Councillor Smith, and you're probably just not on the front of your mind right now, Councillor Smith, but I'd like to ask a question about cameras and running of stop on cameras, because we were a big advocate. We did resolutions in the past, and Councillor Smith continues to bring that up. You don't have to share anything tonight, but I would appreciate if you could send in any new data on that, how that program has gone or not gone, and what the reports are, whatever it may be, or if you have comments tonight, and then forward some data in the future, that'd be great.
We would be happy to share that along. Yeah, it is something we're mindful of. We do receive reports regularly from bus operators. It does continue to occur. But yeah, we'd be happy to keep you informed.
Yeah, so please send that.
Yep.
I think one of the, if I could ask the CIO, delegations at AMO or Roma to the Ministry of Education, probably at the county level would be probably most suited, but I think we both should put them in requests for sure on that, but I think AMO is closed now, so let's look for Roma for sure then. Yep. And or if we find out anybody that has a delegation at AMO, then we'll hijack it. Any other comments or questions this time? Well, thank you very much for coming and sharing with your information.
Yeah, for sure.
And continue to be partners going forward.
Sounds great.
And if when we do get a delegation, we'll be looking for material as well, like these slides and other slides.
We got you.
We got you.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to move to 11A, discussion item, back page here. Key information report, draft lease agreement for the UEL. So I'll move to Director of Parks, Recreations, Facilities, Director Jansen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So in front of you tonight is a report kind of following along from our last couple of meetings here. We've been sort of working our way through the facilities rotation in South Dundas and Iroquois specifically. So this is sort of a continuation onto that. Staff have been working back and forth with the UEL here for the last couple months. They've went to go see the new space. We've sort of been working through the draft agreement. So it's been to their board. They've sort of reviewed it in principle. There's still a few negotiation points that we're working on, nothing deal breaking. But I did want to bring it to council kind of as a draft today to see if there was anything that council wanted to modify or add to the report while we're kind of finalizing some of those final statements. I know in the report I did talk to their AGM on May 24th. They did end up having to defer that report from their AGM. So they haven't had a chance to do some of their final work. But we're still working back and forth on that. Some of the highlights in the lease, obviously we're looking at moving them to the storage room or a previous storage room, soon to be office space at the archives for about 500 square feet. We match the financial terms that we have with the library agreement. That was some of the direction from council. And then from there, it was just sort of the renewal, the terms, the termination, and then a little bit of the building actually provided some flexibility. So they needed a little bit of kitchen space. Well, there's a kitchen in the facility. If once or twice a year they need a meeting room, there's already a meeting room in the facility. So just trying to work some of that verbiage into the lease. So outside of that, next steps, we'll work in whatever comments council has tonight, whatever final comments we get from the UEL, and then I'll bring back the final agreement for council to approve. But if they have any modifications you guys are looking for, just let me know.
Well, thanks, Director. Good work on continuing to move this forward. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, so Director, continue. Bring back your report. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to 11B, Key Information Report, Iroquois Sewer Analysis. So we have Director of Water and Wastewater, Dennis Villeneuve, and we have Josh Eman from EVB with us tonight. Take your mic on as well there, Josh. There we go. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Okay, yeah, I did prepare a presentation, actually. I don't think I made it in your council report, so I apologize for that. But so yeah, I'm here tonight to talk about the South Dundas water and wastewater supporting studies that we've been working on now since 2023. So thought it would be good to give an update and give you everybody an update on where we are with the work. So just a quick review of what we're going to talk about tonight. First off, a refresher on what our project scope was supposed to be, what we were hired to do. I'm going to go over again the uncommitted reserve capacity findings, which I was trying to remember. I believe we presented to this council already in 2024, but just a quick refresher. And then the new material would be the Morrisburg and Iroquois sanitary collection system analysis, which we've been working on since 23 or late 23. And lastly, we're going to touch on just the water model status. So EVB was retained in 2023 to complete a multi-year phase project, and at that time we were hired to do the uncommitted reserve capacity for both the water and wastewater treatment plants, Morrisburg and Iroquois wastewater, and obviously the regional water plant. And then the second component of that was that we're going to review the wastewater collection system, which kind of broken down into a few different tasks. The first being collecting and reviewing I've got two different. Collecting and reviewing background information, monitoring rainfall and sewage flows in the collection system over several years. So although I know this has been in the works for a long time, we've also been collecting a lot of data, which is critical to the work that we are doing over that same long period. And then lastly, once we've taken all that data and then putting it into a hydraulic model of the sanitary collection system for both the villages of Morrisburg and Iroquois. So I'm going to start with just an introduction again on the uncommitted reserve capacity. So the uncommitted reserve capacity can be defined as the excess capacity available in your water or wastewater treatment plant that's available to new developments or works. And the purpose of that is to make sure that you know how much capacity is available to new development so that you can make sure when you're approving future developments or doing some strategic planning, you know what kind of capacity that you have available to give to these new developments. And again, as I previously stated, we did present this in 2024, and the calculations actually haven't been updated since then, so I'm just going to touch quickly on what we previously presented. This is the calculation of the uncommitted reserve capacity. So essentially, just to put it in high level, it's what's coming at down the pipe as of today. So when you look at your plant, if it's operating at 40% capacity, let's say, you can't just say that you have the 60% remaining. You've got to account for what you've already committed that hasn't been connected yet to other developments that are in the works. So that's essentially what that formula is saying. And this is the data that was presented. So the Iroquois and Morrisburg Regional Water Treatment Plant is operating currently at around 51%, which means you have about 980 residential units available. Oh my gosh, I keep doing that. I'm sorry, I've got too many things going at the same time. I can't see that screen, and I need that, so I always bring this one in case, and then here I am. So that's better. Thank you. Yeah, so the plants, that's how much available capacity is at the water treatment plant, with which is equivalent to 980 residential units. So overall, the water plant is in actually excellent shape. As well, this is the Morseburg wastewater treatment plant. So it's operating at around 44% capacity, even better than the water plant, which is equivalent to about 1,360 residential units. So again, you guys are in favorable situation for your water and wastewater treatment plant on Morseburg. And then lastly, coming in at the end here is Iroquois. It's still doing very well. It's operating around 58% capacity. You have about 531 residential units available there. So this is the type of the reports that Dennis and staff and the planning staff are taking when they're looking at all these new developments and this exciting work that's going on in your communities. These are the things that are, that are critical to staff for making some of these decisions. So then the next portion was this is looking at what's coming at the end of the plant, or what capacity we have at the end of the pipe. The next thing we looked at was how to get it there, like what kind of capacity you have available to you in your collection systems. So to review the wastewater collection system, we had some objectives, and the first was to create a calibrated model of the sanitary collection system. And then we're going to identify sections that are operating over capacity. And then ultimately, we're going to be able to confirm ability to support growth and also start characterizing your inflow and infiltration. So inflow and infiltration, just to touch on that, these are two different things. This is the non-sewage water that's making it into your collection system. So these are the things that ideally we wouldn't be having, and that's inflow, which is any kind of direct connection to your sewer. So roof leaders, sump pumps fall into that, catch basins that are connected to a sanitary sewer instead of a storm sewer, that kind of thing. Those are direct connections to the collection system. And then the other is the infiltration, which is groundwater seeping into the sewer. So that's cracked pipes or compromised pipes, leaking manholes, that kind of thing. So it's working its way through the ground and then from the ground getting into your collection system. So our first task was that we had to do a lot of data collection because we had to build these models. So we reviewed all the as-built information available for both collection systems. We also went out and took a topographic measurement of all the manholes within your collection system, which ultimately led to us determining inverts of all your sewers. And as well, we looked at your CCTV footage of your camera, which are the camera reports of your sewers, so that we knew what kind of diameters the pipes were. Next, we set up rain gauge, so we installed a rain gauge at the water treatment plant. And what this does essentially, it's like for the farmers out there, it's like a tipping bucket system. It's essentially measuring how much rainfall that we're getting, and how this thing works is every time it gets 0.2 millimeters of rainfall, it measures a click. And from that data, we're able to then start putting together what kind of rainfall events we're having and what this distribution of the storms that we're getting or occurring. So we collected rainfall as soon as we got the go-ahead from the municipality in 23. We put this thing up, and then every few months we went and collected that data. So we had really good rainfall data for part of 2023 and all of 2024 and 2025. And what we found was that the rainfall data collected was actually obviously it was unique to our site, because we're finding that we're getting a lot of microburst storms and things that are more, different intensities in localized locations. So there was a little bit of difference, but it aligned very nicely to the rainfall data that were measured by the province's rainfall gauges in the area. So we had good data there. So these are the rainfall events. So although we went through all of 2024, we really had a pretty uneventful year in 2024 for rainfall. Very uneventful in 2025. So we had all this different flow and rainfall data over that year, but there was really no major storm events that were really of value to us. So this is kind of the risk you take when you start doing this type of work. Like, you got to hit the right design storm or the right conditions so you can get good data. So the best ones that we got were in August 9th of 2024. That was our biggest storm. And that actually, it had the total amount of rainfall that we got was about a 1 in 2 year storm, but we had some very high intensities. Again, getting back to this microburst storms that we talked about, where we had some really, really heavy intensities during that whole rainfall event, which gave us a 1 in 10 year peak intensity duration over that storm event. So again, we've got all this data, and that was the one that we kind of zeroed in on for our modeling. And yeah, so then the other thing we were doing in parallel to this was trying to measure sewage flows within the collection system. And so how we do that is there an area velocity flow meter. It's this thing that we strap, or Dennis and his team strap in for us, inside the collection system, inside the pipes. And it's measuring both the depth of the liquid in the pipe as well as the velocity, and we're using that to calculate flow. This technology in itself is not all that accurate. There's a lot of, in sewage, as you can imagine, there's a lot of debris, like things that are coming down the pipe that are hanging up on this thing that throw it off. As well, it depends on a nice laminar flow, like a nice smooth flow pattern. And what we're finding is that these manholes, a lot of times we're having changes in direction or drops, which throw it off. And so they're inherently inaccurate. And then on top of that, where we're putting it and what we're putting it in make it even less accurate. But so we have to take all this data that we're collecting with an asterisk when we're evaluating it. And then so each of the different collection systems, so this is Morseburg, we sort of divided the collection system into different areas where we were trying to break it down into different zones that we can kind of zero in on and try to get some data on each zone to see if there's any kind of trending between the different areas. So in Morseburg, we broke it down into 4 areas by putting the data collector into the key locations, these manholes that we've identified here. And this is Iroquois. So we had it in same thing. We kind of broke it into zones, and at key locations we did flow data monitoring over the period of those 2 years. So this is the starting of now that we've got all this data, we start to actually look at trying to calibrate this model that we've created of your collection system. So the first thing we start with is what your actual dry weather flow, which is your real, like your actual sewage. There's the groundwater tables are low, it's dry. This is true sewage coming down the pipes. And so what we did is we used our flow data that we collected to come up with a diurnal pattern that kind of shows how the sewage flows throughout the day. So this is an example of one of the manholes that we did, kind of showing your baseline flow and how it varies throughout a 24-hour period. And then the next step, once we got that dry weather model working, is to start putting in the wet weather flow. And how we do that is, because in theory, you're not supposed to be getting any rainfall in the sewer. So how we do it is we take a storm event and we then distribute that storm event over catchment areas and determine how that water is making its way into our collection system using the data that we had. And so we use what they call an RTK method, which is essentially kind of breaking it down into 3 different peaks in that storm event and then applying that over a catchment area to our collection system. And then from there, we're trying to go and get the data that through this calibration process to match as close as we can to what we're seeing in the model. Now, again, as I previously stated, we didn't totally trust the area velocity flow meters. Like, for example, if it's saying 60 liters a second that was coming down that pipe, we know that that's not the most accurate flow measuring. So what we would do is look at pumping stations that have a different type of flow meter or sewage plants that have a different type of flow meter that are more accurate, and then we would give more weight to that data. So here's an example of what we pulled out of this model that we've created. So along the top is the gray line there is the rainfall that we actually measured using our rain gauge data. And then the dashed lines are what we're finding in our model. And then the solid lines are what we're finding in the actual measured flow. So we tried to really calibrate our model to the August 9th storm event. And this is for Iroquois. And Iroquois has 2 reliable flow measuring devices that we relied on. The first being the Elizabeth sewage pumping station, and the second being the wastewater treatment plant itself. And one of the things we haven't totally figured it out, but one of the things that we saw in both Morseburg and Iroquois in the storm event was right away, as soon as you started getting rain, you got an immediate peak in your collection system, which tells us you've got a lot of culprits in there for direct inflow connections, and which kind of not totally surprising. But the second part that we struggled with, and we saw it on a couple storms, was that you got a second peak that even a higher surge than the first one after the rain started slowing down. So, a lot of theories being spitballed in the office about why maybe ground saturations and things like that. And then we got the second rainfall event and things were already saturated, or, some of the theories we thought about, but we found this in both Morseburg and Iroquois under this storm event. So I'm just pointing that out. This is Morseburg, same thing. You can see that we're finding the same data where you're getting that second surge, and we had a hard time getting the model to even replicate what we were seeing. So summarize without going through the nitty gritty, we're going to summarize the findings. We're in the Morseburg. To get it calibrated under the August 9th storm event, what we were finding is then when we start putting some of the other storm events in there, they weren't quite as matching. So in Morseburg, we found that we were able to get the first peak match very, very closely to what we're measuring. But the second peak on the August 9th, we were actually undershooting in our model by about 30%. But by getting the model calibrated to this storm event, we were shooting around 28% higher on the other storm events that we captured. So it's very far from an exact science. We thought that was a pretty good compromise between the different storm events. And then likewise, for Iroquois, same thing. We were almost bang on the peak storm event on the first one on August 9th, and then the second one we were undershooting again by about 30%. But then by doing so, we're finding that we're overshooting on some of the measurements that we're getting on these other storm events by sometimes upwards to 100%. So, some variations, and ultimately what it's telling us is that the model is somewhat conservative to what we're seeing in the field. So then from there, now we've got this model functioning, it's able to tell us all this stuff. We're starting to trying to piece through what does that mean to the community and the municipality. So first what we did was we went through and ran the August 9th storm event and looked at what the events were. And so we kind of put out a grading system where we looked at manholes and we looked at pipes. So the pipes we were looking at good, so the pipes operating at 75% capacity or less, which is yellow. Pink in the pipe is poor, it's over 75%, but it's less than surcharge. And then the red on the pipes themselves is meaning that it's actually operating in a surcharge situation. It's exceeding the capacity of the pipe. And then likewise for manholes, if it was operating properly, it would be blue or good. Pink meaning that it's actually it's surcharging in the manhole above the obvert of the pipe, but it's still below what we would see as basement flooding. And then red is, it's now high enough the model saying it's high enough in that pipe that we could be getting subject to basement flooding in our sewers. So that was the data, just to go back, that was the data in Morseburg. So you could see there was only one real street that was under the August 9th that our model was saying that we should have seen surcharging or potentially flooding. And when I spoke to Dennis, it actually did occur. And we were pumping our, thinking, all right, we got some match, we got a hit here. And then he told me after that the pipe was partially collapsed. So he says it's probably because of that. I'm saying it might be just, it seems too coincidental that was the case. But in any event, we've identified that Farlinger is a limiting section of the collection system in Morseburg. And likewise with Iroquois, it performed a little bit better than Morseburg, and there was just a couple sections on Caldwell Drive and easement on what we're calling easement, that there was pipes that were operating a little over capacity. So then the next step is we now have a calibrated model. We then take what a theoretical storm, so like the absolute worst storm event that our guidelines say that we could achieve, or we could see, which we call the 1 in 100 year storm event, and we go and start seeing what your system would look like under that. And we have a theoretical storm that there's guidelines that tell us in our area how much rainfall depth that we would get under 1 in 100 year storm event. And then there's theoretical distributions of that rainfall that we have to apply to the model. And when we do that, obviously, as you expect, there's a lot more surcharging and both manholes and flooding surcharging of pipes and flooding of manholes. And we list them in detail in the report. And I've just kind of give you a quick summary of both Morseburg and Iroquois on the slides tonight. But ultimately what this is telling us is these are the sections of your collection system that are close to the capacity, and ones that when we're starting, if there's upgrades being prepared, or if there's road reconstructions being done, these are the ones we should be looking at increasing in size. So I guess moving on for recommendations of the report, we're not telling you guys anything that you didn't already know, that there's a significant I&I issue in both Morseburg and Iroquois, which is pretty common for this vintage of collection system. There's a big debate on whether you think it's money well spent to try to capture all these things and correct them. We have lots of opinions on that, but one of our recommendations is to do some smoke testing, CCTV inspections to see if we can identify some of these inflow sources and, go through a campaign to try to get some of this stuff out. And then there's short-term, medium-term, long-term repairs in your collection systems where, again, if you're rebuilding roads, that some of these pipes that should be increased. And then again, your recommendations for Iroquois, we identified which streets were problematic, and you may want to consider doing additional flow monitoring to see if we can get some other significant rainfall events at those key locations. And same for Morrisburg. And it's the model, we've now satisfied our requirement of creating this calibrated model, and you can continue to gather data and further refine the model calibration if you think it's important to the community. And then last step would be the growth analysis. So like now that you guys are seeing a lot of growth, both in Iroquois, more so right now it seems than Morrisburg, but both communities, we can go through and talk to planning staff and start looking at what kind of growth you're seeing and tell you what kind of impacts that would have on your collection system. So that's kind of it for the wastewater side. And just the last slide, and I apologize, I know this is a lot of data, is the water model. Staff asked that we speak to that as well. There was a little confusion on what our mandate was. We weren't asked as our 2023 project to do any evaluation of the water model. What we do have is a model that actually, if I recall correctly, was created when they did the water plant in like 2022, I think it was. So we still have that water CAD model that was provided to us by the township, and we are able to use that model to answer, questions or look at impacts on your distribution system. But what that model isn't is a calibrated model. So like there's some processes you're supposed to go through with hydrant testing and some other works to refine the model from theoretical to reflect actual results in your distribution system. And that model hasn't been done, or excuse me, that calibration hasn't been done. And likewise, it hasn't been updated to reflect any upgrades or new developments that have happened since the first time. So that's something that I just wanted to give you a snapshot of where that is at and something you guys may want to consider in the future. Yeah.
Very good. Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh, for sharing lots of details. Just
Yeah.
shows that math's important, right?
Yeah.
Maths is important.
Yeah,
And how you get to there. I think it's going to be really good, as we start to think about on the strat planning going forward over years ahead, right? To know where we need to work in the areas, the capacity we do have, and I know our water and wastewater director has a good handle on the current capacity of the water plant and how we can expand that, and that's all part of the processing that we've been talking about. So really appreciate getting this data so that we can move forward, and thanks to Deputy Mayor for really pushing us to make sure we get this data. One of the things I will say on the inflow, we did pass a bylaw, right, to start to look at the inflows and coach people to get them out of our sewer collection system and into the right system. So that's good that we're proactively on that bylaw and coaching folks on that. But I'm sure there'll be questions or comments. There we are.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Broad. Yeah, no, I think this is a well worth exercise. I think, we've had these discussions about some of our developers who are coming into South Dundas should be responsible for this work. But this is a lot of work that needs to be completed up front. So when we do get the developers coming in, at least their engineers have the data, or at least the best data that is available on record. And I know through the county's GIS system, there's a lot of good mapping information on our sewer system as well, and that's been well appreciated. Can you just go back, I hate to ask you this, I think it was some of your first slides where you just kind of showed the available capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on your available residential lots, 531 here, and I think you call it committed, not in service residential. Could you just kind of explain how you would have calculated that? Was that just based on an area-based formula, liters per second per hectare, based on the available land?
Are you talking the non-residential?
Yeah, no, residential.
Residential, yeah. So How we did it was, if you read the actual design guidelines, what they actually recommend is that you go and calculate how much flow per capita you're generating and then use that same data to reflect for future growth. When we looked at it, because there's such a high I&I component to your existing residential developments, we used a conservative theoretical, and I don't have the number on the top of my head, but I believe it was 3.5 persons per household and 450 liters per capita per day, if I'm not mistaken. And so we use that theoretical, conservative theoretical sewage flow to take that, how much actual cubic meters a day we had, and then break it down into a residential unit.
So then, when you calculated that, did we take a look to see how much available land we have that can be developed and correlated your number based on that available land?
No, we didn't. All we did in this particular exercise was looked at how much available capacity we have, but we didn't go the step further, if I understand your question, and say, okay, based on current development densities, it's this much area and you have this much area. So no, we haven't gone through that
Okay,
exercise.
I'm thinking we probably should do that exercise relatively quickly, quick as we can, because I think with all the development opportunities that we have forthcoming, I think we should get a handle on that sooner than later, because we'd hate to say that, especially when we look at the presentation of today, and the density is increased from a normal subdivision to, I wouldn't say 30% higher, but probably 20% higher in terms of household, which equates to additional flows. So I think we should take a good look at that to ensure that we want to be open arms for developers to come in, but that's a key figure. And it doesn't take long for 531 homes to get developed or whatever the number is there. So, and keeping in mind too, as Josh knows, as Ben and the engineers know, theoretical versus actual, there is quite a bit of difference. When you calculate the peak flow, I would say it's about over half. Actual is probably less than half of the peak flow. Would that be fair?
Yeah, we're using for the sewage. Sorry, on the uncommitted reserve, we're using average day flow for sewage.
Yeah.
Max day flow, which is about 2.5.
Yeah.
For water. But you're right, like what we're finding, like we're trying to be conservative when we give these number of lots, and the expectation is that this calculation will get repeated every couple years when you're starting to get development, which you guys are finally starting to get into. Yeah. And once that starts happening, you might say that we'll tell you have 530 lots. You might get 130 lots, let's say, connected, and you think you'd have 400, but in fact, we redo the calculation and you still have about 475.
Correct.
Because we're being over conservative.
Correct. Yeah. I think that's key. I think that's really key to this exercise as well, to set us up for the future, for future growth. And same with commercial and industrial, institutional, all of that.
Yeah, and on the commercial side, we made an assumption, Mark. I think it was like 10 meters cube per day per hectare, something like that for commercial, which is sort of a broad range. But if you get warehousing, that's going to be a small fraction of what we're allowing.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, very good.
Thanks.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, through Mayor Broad. So I just wanted to clarify that available residential lots. So like we'll just use Iroquois for an example. So that's what we currently have for buildings today.
That's right.
Plus what has already been announced, that is forthcoming. Like there's potentially going to be 4 subdivisions on the go here. So then that's over and above on top of that, right?
Yeah, and honestly, so I thought, because I thought we'd brush over, and I knew I had a lot of slides to talk about, there was actually maps that we included in the original slide and in the report that I could share through staff. But it actually shows what was included. And if memory serves me correctly, and on Morrisburg, we included the full Dutch Meadows development. Right. On Iroquois, we included Valecraft as well, full development. So that the uncommitted reserve is supposed to be anything that's not committed, and the term committed changes between municipalities, but we took, even though some of them weren't draft plan approved yet, we accounted for them as committed in the calculation.
Very good. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, but to clarify, lands north of number 2, would you have brought that in across from Dutch Meadows?
No.
You wouldn't have brought that in. The presentation from Sunshine, you wouldn't have brought that in. The OPG lands, you wouldn't have brought that in. So it's really the stuff that's already been draft approved or brought to the table that we know of would have been included.
That's right.
Full development.
Yeah, full development, yeah.
Very good. Awesome. Councillor Ward.
Thanks, Mayor. So thank you, Josh, for your presentation. I just was wondering if perhaps it would be worthwhile to also maybe get a number in the budget for next year to do a water model, like the water calibration, since we didn't do it. And it's probably due time, since we've had some new connections come on, that we need to look at that and make sure it's accurate. And then I'd also be interested in seeing something come forward with the smoke testing. Like, I think if there's a lot of I&I, that's water that it's going through the wastewater treatment plant. It's also going through our collection system, so it's taking up space in the pipes that doesn't need to be there. And it'd just be good to identify that. I'm not saying we need to action on it tomorrow, but something to at least identify some problem areas and try and work on, targeting those areas for education, so.
Very good. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Eamon. Thanks for the presentation. Thanks, Director Vilna, for working with EVB to get this report to us. So appreciate it. Okay. We'll continue on 7A, WW 2026-01, Tender Award, Iroquois Wastewater Treatment Plant Digester Roof Replacement. Director Vilna.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In front of you is the tender for the Iroquois Wastewater Treatment Plant Digester Roof Replacement. This is the original roof of the digester from 1957. It has some leaks, and the membrane is cracking out there, so it's time for it to get fixed. We budgeted $100,000 at the 2026 budget. This project went to bids and tenders, and as well as the local newspapers. We only had 2 bids come in. The lowest bid was $82,950 plus taxes by Amherst Roofing and Sheet Metal. I did call all 3 references, and they're extremely happy with their work. They actually just finished a digester roof, the same kind of roof we're putting in, a bitumen roof, at the Ravensview Wastewater Treatment Plant. And I spoke with one of the operators there, and they said everything went smooth at the project. So anyways, it's scheduled to start September 1st and be completed November 1st. So at this time, I'm just looking for you to award Amherst Roofing and Sheet Metal for $82,950 plus taxes.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, I have a resolution. The Council Municipality award tender number WW 26-05 for the Iroquois Wastewater Plant Digester Roof Replacement to Amherst Roofing and Sheet Metal Limited in the amount of $82,950 plus applicable HST, and the Director of Water, Wastewater, and the clerk be authorized to execute the necessary agreements with Amherst Roofing and Sheet Metal Limited. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Seven B, CS 2026-12, Tubi Festival Liquor License Requirement Support Resolution. Clerk LeBrun.
Thank you, Mayor Broad, and to council. So this evening, I have a report in front of you here. I was contacted early last week from the Tubi Festival organizers, and they were requiring a support resolution from council for the Tubi Festival. So as we all know, it's the 54th year for the Tubies. It is a beloved community event in Morrisburg and South Dundas, and it's certainly something that we feel was worth bringing to council for a support resolution. And like I said, this is a requirement from the AGCO in order to sell liquor to actually make a profit to help support the event. So I don't think this has come before council before. So we're happy to have a support resolution attached to this report, and just looking for council's approval on that tonight.
Questions, comments? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Brown, I was just wondering, do we know yet, so exactly how is this going to work? Like, does anybody really know? I know we haven't done this before, but do we have an idea? Is it just going to be open alcohol available everywhere, or is it going to be a confined area, like a traditional beer garden, or basically how is it going to work?
So this is the same. There's no, so two things. This is for their liquor license in their controlled event area, like they've been doing for 50 years.
Okay, so
this is nothing new.
Oh, so it's nothing to do.
This has nothing to do with the new park liquor
okay.
license. Director Jansen, a couple of meetings ago, brought back a report that really doesn't affect this, and they don't want anything to do with that.
Okay.
That new
Okay.
bylaw
Okay.
or Ontario government.
So basically, this is
status quo.
This is just status quo. Okay.
Yeah, and I think now
Okay.
that probably since they've announced that announcement, the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Commission want this resolution from us saying that's what they're doing there, so.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's cool.
Okay, I just, okay.
Yeah,
All
makes
right,
sense. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the question, though, Councillor, to make sure we're, yeah. So I have a resolution, whereas the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario requires the municipal council resolution designated an event as being of municipal significance before a special occasions permit may be issued for a public event where liquor is to be sold. And whereas the annual Tubi Festival is a public community celebration in its 54th consecutive year held at the Morrisburg Waterfront Park in the municipality of South Dundas. And whereas the festival is organized by the Tubi Festival Committee and hosted by the Morrisburg Junior C Hockey Team and draws residents, former residents, and visitors from across the region and province. And whereas the festival is scheduled for July 31st through August 2nd, 2026 at the Morrisburg Waterfront Park, Morrisburg, Ontario. Now, whereas, therefore, is resolved that the Council Municipality of South Dundas hereby designate the annual Tubi Festival, July 31st, August 2nd, 2026, as an event of municipal significance for the purpose of the Alcohol Gaming Commission special occasion permit, and be further resolved that the mayor or clerk are authorized to execute any documentation required by the AGCO in connection with this designated and passed at this meeting of the Council Municipality the 27th day of May, 2026. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. 7C, CAO 2026 also Iroquois Locks terminate lease with St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corp. CAO DeHaan or Director Jansen, who's going to start?
I'm taking this one. I offered to take this one. So again, I won't spend too much time on the history here, but very briefly, 1988, the Township of Matilda entered into a lease for the area at the locks. In 2014, that was updated. Really, the intention from the outset, the 2014 lease agreement, of course, now we're into something that's gone from 1 to 2 pages to something that's a lot more complicated. But as you know, our position, the municipality's position has been all along, this is to facilitate the Lions Club and having some structures out there to support that area. So what's changed, as I'm sure council has and the community has identified, the grass is not being mowed in the leased area. The lease has not changed at all. The lease hasn't changed since 2014. The wording hasn't changed. But what has changed is that the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation has advised us that their current interpretation of the lease is that the maintenance responsibility of the municipality now includes mowing, where it hadn't since 1988 to this point forward. So what does that mean? For us, we recognize that there are some pretty significant community events that are taking place on that land, on Transport Canada's land. And for us, we do believe it's very important to put our best foot forward to the residents that are enjoying these community events and the visitors coming to the area. So we have actually commenced cutting. We did commence cutting because we don't want to have something that is, I guess that's not what we not putting our best foot forward. So we did start that, recognizing that it did need to be done, and obviously the St. Lawrence Seaweed Management Corporation had dug in their heels. They've erected barriers to identify where that leased land is. And we have had correspondence with them since they've identified, they did identify to us that they believe that that's the interpretation of lease and our responsibility going forward. We had provided some correspondence back in terms of some of the commitments that had been promised to be made there, which still hadn't been done, and some offers of how we could move forward. We didn't get a formal response to any of that. And really what it was, okay, like, look, if there's an issue with having the resources to do it, we could provide some resources and do that work on a cost recovery basis, but that wasn't obviously well received or something they wanted to consider or spend some time responding to. So all this to be said, what we're recommending to council tonight is going forward, terminating the lease with the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation. There is I'm going to say 90-day termination clause. So we do have 90 days where we'll continue to mow that area. And we can continue to go forward if that's council's direction for the rest of the season. No problem there. But our suggestion is to terminate the lease and then actually do a renegotiation so that it's clearly kind of identified to both parties kind of what's permitted and not permitted. And I think, from as we've talked internally at a staff level, some of the things we should potentially look at is there some revenue generating opportunities that we can look at through that lease to be able to recover some of these new costs that all of a sudden St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation has decided it's on us to the burden for us to bear. So that's option one, and that's what's being recommended to council. And some revenue generating opportunities include things like having I apologize, Director Jansen. Right now we can't. No one can rent an open space area. We have no. Of course, like you can rent Matilda Hall as a family. There's no open space area that people can rent, and perhaps the gazebo is a great example of an area that a family can rent. And I know just even on a personal level, there was a family event we had just a couple last year, and we used that space as a gathering space because we were at at a funeral, and we thought, let's go as a family and kind of sit down at the lock area and enjoy that. And it was a dreary day, so no one was out there. And so fortunately we had it to ourselves, but of course we couldn't have had it to ourselves if that wasn't the case. So maybe we actually create that kind of environment. We have great demand for camping, and we know during Bluegrass, there's a lot of campers that end up setting up there, not only in our leased area, but outside of our leased area. I'd like to remind everybody that's listening. But that could be an opportunity for us as well. We're managing a campsite. We can expand it and offer a little bit more. So there's a whole bunch of opportunity there that perhaps fits into a way to generate revenue and help to offset these new costs that may be there. Option two, if council prefers, we can just terminate the lease. So we can say, thank you very much, we're out. And that doesn't exclude the opportunity for the municipality to consider that land in the future, because we do know Transport Canada is divesting that land. And so at that point, if council wants to pursue ownership, then it's it makes a lot of sense for us to be maintaining it if it's something we're owning. We could continue with status quo. So if council would like to see us not cut the grass there and kind of make that kind of statement, we can do that too. We can take that direction, or the final option. And there are more options council may want to get into, but maintaining the lease and kind of adopting the position that St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation has, and just kind of make the grass mowing there a normal part of our operations going forward. Again, grass cutting, it's approximately $3,000 per season. It's not a huge, a huge burden to the municipality, but I think there's a little bit of a principled thing here too that kind of sticks in my craw, to be quite honest with you, because this is an area that's in the middle of an area that they're mowing already, and to all of a sudden kind of shift on us this many years into a lease is, anyway, we'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Sir Don, and well, maybe I could recap the last 2.5 years of the locks. As you recall, the solar eclipse, April 8th of 2024, brought a lot of attention that this was going to be a massive viewing area. And I know with Peter Young's group at STNG, there thousands of people were going to travel to South Dundas, if not 10,000 people, and that's what happened. And at the time, CEO Mills and I started to look around with Director Jansen of all the viewing areas. And at one of our trips to the locks, and the Iroquois Business Group had made this aware to us at the time, like the treatment of the locks was deteriorating over and over again. And CEO Mills and I, we had a call in around the 1st of March 2024 with then president of the St. Lawrence Seaway Commission, Jean-Albert Morin. And I bring that up tonight to say, he was supportive of us in the locks, and he felt like that this was part of the Seaway. And, if you see the Government of Canada national building commercials, right? And so the Seaway, which generates over $1 trillion of shipping, right? And now we're considering building Alto. And I'm going to go off track a little bit with Alto. So another national building event that's going to happen. And it could happen in our community, or it could happen to the north of us. Certainly happen in SDNG counties, as the current path is through North Stormont, North Glengarry. Some folks have reached out and wanting us to pass resolutions. And I'm now thinking about the lock. So 75 years ago, the Seaway is built. And the shopping malls are built and plazas, parking lots are built, and we get funding for the plazas, and a walk viewing area is built, and washrooms were built, and a canteen was built for people throughout the Eastern Ontario to view the ships and recognize, the 9 villages that were moved during the Seaway project. And I know we have St. Lawrence Parks and Upper Canada Village, but this lock viewing area was part of that history. So to the folks that are going to deal with Alta, do not trust the federal government. So whatever you get from Alta, they will take it away. They will take it away. So here we are. So Mr. Jean Morin got a different job and moved on, and now we have a new president at the St. Lawrence Management Corporation. Different direction. And with Transport Canada, they wanted to divest of the walks. MP Duncan and I wrote letters about the condition of the walks, wanting the benches upgraded, the fencing, the grass cut, the flags changed, the monuments changed, the bathrooms reopened, the sewer septic system repaired. They made some steps to fix that, and they made some visible changes, but obviously today, at a previous event, they were like, we're not fixing the bathrooms unless you agree to take over all the maintenance of the bathrooms. So it's like, well, we don't own it. And it's like, everything just keeps getting downloaded again and again. And this is another scenario. So we told the current president, well, we'll get back to you on what we're going to do. So we reached out, thanks to MP Duncan, and had a meeting with Transport Canada. We met with some of their top officials, and Director Jansen, CEO DeHaan, and I traveled to Ottawa and met with them. And we explained the situation, and we said, okay, if Transport Canada is divesting of the property, which I understand, if their mandate is the shipping channel and the $1 trillion that it's generating, what about Parks Canada? What about Heritage Canada? Let's reach out. Is this an opportunity for them to own another park? And that was nowhere. So now we're at a standstill. Obviously, a great partnership would be with the St. Lawrence Parks Commission. Obviously, we know right now they have $80 million of other things on their plate right now, and taking ownership of the walks in Iroquois is probably not one of them. And nor is it or should it be, or we need public opinion on what the future state is going to be. So we're at this crossroads today where they've decided we're not going to cut half the grass. So literally, for a lifetime, the workers at the commission up there have cut the grass in the 6 acres. And because we wanted it to look nice, we wanted new flags, we wanted a bathroom that you could use, they've decided not to cut the grass. Well, shame on you, federal government. Shame on you, Transport Canada. This is an absolute joke. And I've sat here for 4 years, and I've never got this upset about something. But here we are today, right? Either way, this is going to cost the taxpayer a lot of money. Either way. Whatever happens there, because people of Iroquois and South Dundas don't want the lock viewing station to go away. Do we want Transport Canada to sell it to somebody and build who knows what there? Or just close it, bury it? I don't know. Anyways, public opinion on this one and public input for our next strat plan. Obviously, nothing's happened immediately. Transport Canada takes 10 years to sell a piece of property, so I'm sure that's where we'll be next council and down the road, kick down the road. But here we are. But I just wanted to explain why we're at today, why they would, and it's not the workers. People called me and said, I've begged them to let me cut the grass, and they won't. My bosses will not. This is not on the workers. This is direction from the president and the management group at that association. Shame on them. Shame on them. Anyways, this is where we're at today. We got to decide, do we break the lease and make a new lease so that we can at least do something? Do we just stop cutting the grass altogether? What do we do? Councillor Ward.
Thanks, Mayor. So I would echo your passion, because it's unfortunate, because if you watch any TV show or anything and you see the commercial, they're advertising the sacrifice that Eastern Ontario made for the greater good of Canada. So it's really too bad that the federal government feels that way, and I echo your thoughts on that. I do think we should probably go ahead and renegotiate the lease. And yes, we are going to take the hit to cut the grass, but I think it's for the betterment of everyone that lives in South Dundas at this point and also visits and generates tourism income. But, again, when we renegotiate this lease, we really need to drive it home that this isn't our asset to own. This is their asset to own and work with us on. And we're more than willing, I think, to be partners on it. It's just how that looks legally. And hopefully, we can have a really great relationship moving forward. And I think maybe a new lease is just a new way to start fresh and just try something different and see what we can do moving forward. So I'm in favor of that. So I got distracted.
Thanks, Councillor Ward. Yeah, Councillor Smith.
Good, okay. Yeah, either way, I'm gonna say, yeah, terminate lease and renegotiate. Either way, I think it's probably gonna be a long process, so either, this could take till next year to renegotiate this lease, so in my opinion, either way, the grass has to get mowed, so we're gonna end up cutting the grass, I would imagine, all this year at least anyway, so I'm fully expecting that. I was just gonna say, just continue to mow the grass, and I was going back and forth between just status quo, just keep mowing the grass, or renegotiate, and which means we're still going to mow the grass anyway. So I'm going to say we're going to try and renegotiate this thing, terminate and renegotiate.
Councillor Vino.
Yeah, through you. Just one question. Is this our staff going to be doing this, or will our contractor take this on for this summer?
Director Jansen.
Through you, Mayor Broad, we have our contractor taking it on.
Okay.
And we've cut it this week. Yeah, that commercial. I'll play the first 10 seconds. Here it is.
The builders. In the 1950s, Canada built the St. Lawrence Seaway. It led to thousands of jobs and more than $1 trillion of cargo shipped to the world. It's time to build big again with Canadian workers, steel, lumber, and technology. We'll be our own best customer, sell more to the world, and take control of our future. It's time to build strong.
So there we are. There's where we're at. We're cutting federal government's grass at a viewing station to view the ships. That's a tourist attraction. I told them my story earlier. My parents are a little older now, so they don't have any friends alive that visit them. But years ago, when they had friends come out of town, come to Morrisburg, first thing my dad would do, lock schedule. Okay, we're going up to locks for 2 hours. We're going to see 2 ships, right? And take visitors up there. And I know everybody does that. Like we sit at the Iroquois business group meetings. Tia and Ben and that's what I talk about. We're going to the locks. We're going to the locks. So, anyways, this is where we're at. So we'll work on that. Let's go with I guess option 1, renegotiate this lease and see where we go. Have a resolution. Be resolved that the Council of Municipality of South Dundas direct the CEO to formally notify the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation of the municipality's intentions to terminate the existing lease for the Iroquois locks and initiate negotiations of a new lease. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. D, CS 2026-13, temporary exemption of nuisance bylaw number 2016-20. Clerk LeBrun.
Thank you, Mayor Broad, and to council. So through our nuisance bylaw 2016-2020, there is a provision for a temporary exemption. So we did receive an application a few weeks ago from a resident on Rowena Road requesting for a temporary exemption for a private Canada Day event on their property. I did confirm with the applicant that the neighbors have been notified of this event, but she wanted to take the appropriate steps to make sure everything is good with council as well. So that's what's before you this evening. Any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Comments, concerns? Seeing none, I have a resolution to resolve the Council of Municipality of South Dundas approve the temporary nose exemption request from Kim Smith under bylaw 2016-20 for a backyard event to be held at 11060 Rowena Road, Iroquois, Ontario on Wednesday, July 1st, 2026 from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. And E, ES 2026-06, Environmental Advisory Committee, final terms of reference. Chris St. Thomas.
Good evening, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. As council is aware, we have a new Environmental Advisory Committee. We had our first meeting this year in February. Councillor Ward is our council representative on that. We've had 4 or 5 meetings since then, and what I'm asking for is council to approve our final terms of reference. I will let you know there are a few administrative corrections in the report that's here. It has been corrected, it just wasn't ready for agenda time.
Very good. Questions, comments? All right. I have a motion, let it resolve the Council Municipality of South Dundas approve the terms of reference for the Environmental Advisory Committee. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Okay, under bylaws, 8A, 2026-44, proposed amendment to zoning bylaw 2010-48, SCG Development Group Limited. Director of Planning, Peter Young.
Thank you, Council. So as you're aware, this is for a zoning amendment on Chess Road to operate a contractor's yard. Based on the direction we received at the previous meeting on April 8th, we've brought back a alternative bylaw that would use a holding zone with certain requirements related to the proposed use. Originally, it was proposed as an agricultural exception, given that the only uses permitted would be a contractor's yard and a single detached. We've revised that to a rural industrial holding zone, and I think anyone seeing the property would see that rural industrial zoning as well. So the proposed bylaw, similar to many holding bylaws, state that the use is not permitted. The holding zone will not be moved to the lands until the municipalities enter into a site plan control agreement with the owner addressing the visual buffers, noise, wastewater, and stormwater management in accordance with provincial and municipal requirements. Those were, I believe, the key items that were identified at the previous meeting. And also at the previous meeting, there was discussion that the business give approximately 12-month timeline to get those site plans. They take time to get the studies prepared and to do the work, and the owners are they're reaching out to the contractors to get those studies, but there would still be the last meeting talked about a potential 12-month timeline where they may continue to operate while the studies and detailed design was completed. However, progress not demonstrated towards meeting those requirements that councils would have potentially put in this bylaw, there could be additional enforcement to stop that activity if compliance was not being worked towards. In the report, as you know, there's been a number of public comments, and I tried to sort them into what are things within the municipality's control, what are things maybe another agency is the best one to reach out to, including trying to link the contact information as well for anyone to read. And also, we also received some good suggestions just for some changes to the bylaw as well, such as some of the retail accessory uses that wasn't even part of what the applicants were proposing. So some of the suggestions from the public are incorporated into this final bylaw. And so I won't go through all the individual comments, but try to go through each issue and is this something we can look at? Is this a site plan issue that we haven't looked at it yet, but as the site plan process, like a noise berm or that type of thing, that's part of our process. And finally, the intention is to implement the council direction, and you'll see the bylaws also attached to the report that speaks to some of the same things, the retail use, prohibiting open storage of goods unless it's some of the operating vehicles on site, things like that, trying to, again, respond to some of the concerns that were raised. And so the next steps for them would be to submit a site plan control application, and at a future date, once that's gone through the review process, and through engineers and looking at all the studies and back and forth with staff and agencies, we would present the final site plan to council, and there would be the opportunity to remove the holding bylaw at that time. If there was something that council didn't agree with in the site plan and potential removing, that could still be deferred while those matters were addressed. But we would try to address all these matters that were mentioned by council at the last meeting and some of the key public concerns as well. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Director. So they have 1 year to comply? That's the intention of the...
Yes, unless council has other direction, but that should be a good amount of time to I believe they've already started to retain the consultants, do the studies, and then the actual site plan process is supposed to be done within 60 days.
Okay, right.
Once
So my
we get
next
the
question
actual
was,
application.
My
yeah.
next question was the stepping stones, because I think council's wish is all these things want to be done. They need to be started right away because it's going to take a while to do these. So there must be stepping stones along the way. So that first stepping stone would be within 60 days.
First is to get the studies, and that can be, could be a few months depending on the contractors or the engineers and what their existing workload is. Once we receive a complete application, we try to circulate it with, let's see, a 2 to 3 week timeline for Public Works, for the South Nation, for all the different agencies that are involved so they can give their comments. We put those comments back to the developer, and then kind of go back and forth until there's something that, ideally everyone's satisfied with, and then it goes to, typically site plans are just staff approved, but in this case, it would be going to council for the final approval on whether to lift the holding bylaw or not. Again, trying to make sure all these, what you said verbally is captured onto the actual plans, and that there's another time for input to make sure that the concerns you've heard are looked at as well.
Questions, Councilor Dean? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just on that same theme, thank you, through you, Mayor, but just on that same theme though, is there any way we could put language in that they have to demonstrate within a handful of months that they actually are moving forward with the studies? Versus, the risk that they get to the 10th month mark or 11th month mark and then come to the council of the day and say, look, I've got these studies underway, but it's gonna take me another 6 months. And then we're, 6 months later.
That's something we can take directly from council, and we don't need to put in the bylaw. At any time, we can kind of act towards that, but I think that is the intention, is follow-ups, what's the progress, and if progress is not being made, then again, moving towards enforcement and of the
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I was going. Like, at what point and like I think
not 12 months,
not 12
11 months
like,
and
so,
29
like,
days.
Those first things, like you and your staff and our staff will have been working with this group, right? Like, there's not no action. There's certainly actions all the time. Yeah. Other questions, comments?
That was my question.
Right.
It's like,
yeah, go ahead, Councillor Vino.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, because you mentioned there about how like we can make them stop use if they're not making progress on the file. And so my question was going to be, how does that actually work? Like, who's tracking it and all this kind of stuff? But I think you captured it. That was my same concern, I guess.
Other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. I have a motion, let it resolve that the Council of Municipality of Dundas approves bylaw 2026-44, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2010-48 with respect to lands legally described as concession 3, part lot 34, RPN 83455, part 1, former Township of Matilda, Municipality of South Dundas, be read and passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 27th day of May 2026. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bylaw 8, 2026-46, tile loan rating bylaw. Chris A. Thomas.
Thank you again, through you, Mr. Mayor. So back in January, council had accepted and approved a tile loan from a resident. The tile loan is a provincial government funding tool to install tile loans, tile drainage. So the tile work is complete. It's been signed off by myself, and we're looking for council to approve the rating bylaw so we can forward to the province for payments.
Excellent, very good. Questions, comments? Seeing none, I have a motion, let it be resolved the Council of Municipality adopt bylaw 2026-46, being a bylaw to impose special annual drainage rates upon land in respect to which money is borrowed on the Tile Drainage Act, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Uh, 8C, 2026-47, Iroquois Plaza debenture. Treasurer Stewart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Broad. At our last regular council meeting, council directed staff to proceed with the debenture from Infrastructure Ontario. With that direction, staff then requested Infrastructure Ontario to forward the rate offer letter. So that agreement provides the terms and locks in the interest rate at that time. That agreement was signed and returned to Infrastructure Ontario. So tonight, last step for council is the bylaw, I guess the final document to approve before Infrastructure Ontario will transfer the funds to the municipality.
Questions, comments? I have a motion, let it resolve the Council of Municipality of South Dundas adopt bylaw 2026-47, being a bylaw to authorize long-term borrowing pursuant to the issue of debentures to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Incorporation and the principal amount of $1,027,434.63 towards the cost of capital works, and that the mayor and treasurer be authorized to sign all necessary documents to give effect to this contract. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. D, 2026-48 Saddlemar Municipal Drain, third reading. Chris A. Thomas.
Thank you again, through you, Mr. Mayor. So back in 2025, we went through a project called a Section 76, which is an update to the entire assessment schedule for the Saddlemire Drain. Tonight we're just asking for the third and final reading to make it official, so Mr. Mason can do some billing on it.
The Treasury likes to send bills, so that's good. Questions, comments? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, through Mayor Broad. So I just wanted, like, logistically, the billing is going to now be attached to tax invoices, property tax invoices. So, if we just, so let's just say we approve this right now, is it going to be on like the June 30th bill? Is that how it's going to work?
Deputy Treasurer Mason.
Thank your worship. Through you to Councillor Smith. Yes, the amount for the Saddlemire Drain and all the others we passed the last couple of meetings will be reflected on the final tax notice to be printed early next week.
Very good. Okay. Motion be resolved, the Municipality of South Dundas adopt bylaw number 2026-48, being a bylaw to adopt, this is the third reading, the Section 76 Engineers Report of the Saddlemore Drain, and the bylaw 2025-45 be read in third and final time. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Eight E, 2026-49, appointment bylaw enforcement officer, Clerk LeBrun.
Thank you, Mayor Broad, and to council. So this report is a follow-up from the discussion we had in February regarding a casual bylaw enforcement officer, specifically for the park. So we have gone through the process of recruitment. Thank you. I needed to look at Director Jansen for my words, but so we have two casual bylaw officers that we're looking to appoint tonight. If there's any questions on what they will be doing, I will defer it to Director Jansen, but it's a simple report to appoint them as our bylaw officers. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, let it resolve that Council of Municipality of South Dundas adopt bylaw number 26-49, being a bylaw to appoint Cole Fraser Dupuy and William Healy as bylaw enforcement officers for the Municipality of South Dundas, be read and signed, sealed, in open council this 27th day of May 2026. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Eight F, 2026-50, Saddlemar Municipal Drain Maintenance Cost. Deputy Treasurer Mason.
Thank you, your worship. This bylaw is to authorize staff to assess the Section 76 engineering costs, as well as the 2021 and 2025 maintenance costs for the Saddlemire Drain. The application for our agricultural drainage infrastructure grant was completed on April 30th, and the estimated grant amounts for the maintenance have been applied to the eligible agricultural properties. The Section 76 costs are not grant eligible. As council has heard previously, the assessed amounts will be included on the final tax notices, which we printed early next week. I'll take any questions you may have.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, let it be resolved the Council of Municipality of South Dundas adopt bylaw 2026-50, being a bylaw to assess the maintenance and engineering costs of Saddle-Mar Municipal Drain, be read past open council, signed and sealed. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Eight G, 2026-51 investment policy 2-4, Treasurer Stewart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Broad. Staff presented the updated investment policy to council on May 13th. There were no changes suggested by council, and there was no further updates made by staff. So at this time, staff is requesting council to adopt the new investment policy as presented.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, I have a motion to resolve the Council of Municipality of South Dundas adopt bylaw number 26-51, being a bylaw to adopt updated investment policy number 2-4, be read past open council, signed and sealed, and the bylaw 2008-67 be repealed in its entirety. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. And 8H, 2025-82 renewal franchise agreement with Enbridge Gas. Third reading. Clerk will run.
Thank you, Mayor Broad, and to council. So this report is a follow-up to a report that was brought forward in November. Enbridge Gas supplies natural gas, obviously, in South Dundas, and we've been in an agreement with them since 2006, and it was time for that agreement to be updated. So this is standard across Ontario, where Enbridge Gas is servicing the municipalities. So we're at the third reading now. So we saw the first and second reading in November. It went through a number of steps with the Ontario Energy Board. There was opportunity for comment and any problems. There was a process for that. So we've gotten through that. We're at the final reading, and that's what the bylaw is before you, so that they can continue to distribute gas in South Dundas.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, a motion, let it resolve the Council of Municipality of South Dundas approve bylaw number 2025-82, being a bylaw to authorize a franchise agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of South Dundas and Enbridge Gas Inc., and that bylaw 2025-82 be read a third and final time. Moved by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, Councillor Vino second. All in favor? Carried. Boards and committees. Start South Nation. Councillor Smith.
May 14th, South Nation had a meeting. Some of the highlights were, so all of the conservation areas that South Nation has that have waterways in them, the docks are either out now or they should all be out now. The 17th annual youth fish camps registration is open for children ages 9 to 13 at a cost of $95 per child. So the dates that, for the ones that are closest to us, are at Cass Bridge. It's July 8th and 9th and July 29th and 30th. Also, as an alternative, there's August 12 and 13 in Cardinal at the Waterfront Park. Both those days are Wednesdays and Thursdays. I think two of my children are going to be registering for that fish camp, the first one in July. During the tree giveaway this spring that South Nation hosted, there were over 8,000 seedlings given away to the Municipal Free Tree Day program. So there were over 600 seedlings given away in South Dundas. On May the 12th, there were students from Tagway High School who were in part of the high skills major, the Ag high skills major, who were invited to South Nation properties where they were given introductions to GIS technology and forestry as well. May 13th, there was 700 trees and shrubs
given to a property in North Dundas. They were planting windbreaks and buffer strips. This was part of the RALP program, the Marginal Lands program, and those were student volunteers from Academy Catholic Notre Dame, which is in Kempville. The big project this year for South Nation is the Castleman Weir rejuvenation, I guess we'll call it. A 3-year project, a cost of approximately $1.5 million. It's set up into 3 parts. So this year they're going to be doing the sluiceway, which is a pretty extensive project because they have to build a cofferdam in order to block the water so that they can actually repair it. And then in years 2 and 3, they're going to be doing just the entire downstream face. That's going to be happening in 27 and 28. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Smith. County Council meeting last Monday. A few of the highlights. Just pulling up my notes. We approved the service renewal overlay tender, which was a shared contract for the counties and a lot of the lower tiers. And we entered into our 3-year diesel supplier agreement, which obviously continues to increase cost of fuel. We made the official appointment that Jamie Harroth is our new CAO at the counties, and we wished outgoing CEO Maureen Adams a great retirement, and we have a get together tomorrow night that we'll attend to celebrate Maureen's last week on the job. We did review some personnel policy manual updates. We've deferred a few of the topics just around CPI wage increases, how that affects, and then stat holidays. So interested to know when they bring back some more reports, and then as things come before us. From key information reports, great presentation on forestry management plan and where we're at in the forestry. We declined to move ahead with any development charges at the county level. We awarded the regional tourism grants. We announced the SDG Reads event in October. Sherry Lapina is the author, and you'll always hear me talk lots about the libraries. And we also opened up a rejuvenated jail at the county. So the historic jail is in the county building, and they've done some remodeling. So we had a tour and an updated view of the jail. So if you've never been, it's a great little tourist attraction in SDG. And it's amazing. I still can't believe that it was still open in the year 2003. Which is the most amazing part of this jail in the city of Cornwall, in our county's building. So that's that was it from the counties. Anything else to add, Deputy Mayor?
Did you know that there was, around that same time, just before the closing, there was an escape of the jail? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Well, you asked that question, and it was so funny because in 2022, when we took our first tour, I was touring with the clerk of North Dundas at the time. And when they started telling the story, we both kind of looked at each other and smiled because we actually knew the person who escaped. And they found the gentleman, person, I should say, I think it was in the mall parking lot across the street.
Yeah, so good for
it's a little bit of history there.
Right on. Economic and Community Development Committee report.
Yeah, so we met May 19th as a group. The main focus, we asked Alex DeWitt to attend as a delegation. Again, he's going to help us with what we call now the first impressions, not FICE, because he was instructed to change that acronym. So what we're going to be doing, there's going to be about 12 people going to visit Hawkesbury in the month of June. They have given us a geographical area of where they kind of want us to kind of look, and we're just going to kind of observe what Hawkesbury offers, what they bring, their parking, their buildings, their beautification, just stuff like that. So then we can give them feedback on our first impressions of Hawkesbury, and they're going to do the same thing for us. They're going to visit an area in Mooresburg and in Iroquois. The reason why we picked both towns is because they're pretty close together. And what we're hoping actually is they'll see the before the mall and then after the mall gets done to give them the good vision there. So we're really looking forward to doing that. We'll probably spend about, I think, around 4 or 5 hours. And we're going to be talking to local people and role playing a little bit, so they won't know that we're from South Dundas and the purpose we're here. We're just going to kind of go in there with some general questions on tourism, development, act like a banker, whatever, undercover boss almost, like that show, right? We're looking forward to that and then coming back with a good report, because I think that's really going to be key for the next term of council to understand what we've seen. The other thing is the awards of excellence. We're starting to plan for that, or continue planning for that. Applications are going to be open shortly, June 8th. June 8th, thank you for that reminder. And I think it's going to be a 4 or 6 week opening. 5 weeks, that's pretty, 6 weeks, that's good. So if anybody wants to nominate anybody or group in our community, it's going to be opened up June 8th, so we're looking forward to that as well. Anything else?
Yeah, no, just in the feedback we get from the Hawkesbury visitors on the first impressions, that'll start to kick into our Rod grant for our active strat plan, right? Which will then lead us into the next committee or next council's strat plan. So lots of good things we're gonna have, and the expectations are the feedback, positive. What they liked and some things that they see, right? So there'll be a combination of both. Morrisburg Waterfront Committee, Councillor Vina.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So we met a couple weeks ago, I guess, and had a good constructive meeting, mostly updates on ongoing projects. There's nothing too new and exciting coming up except for the biggest one. So we've bounced this around since we started, since I started 4 years ago, about having a sign on the corner of our big ball diamond. Right on the corner, basically, welcome to the Morrisburg Waterfront, and that was kind of our vision. A couple flagpoles. I know we love flags, Director Jansen, more flags. And a little garden and everything. And that was kind of our vision as the Morrisburg Waterfront Committee. And as we got to talking about it, there's other municipalities and communities that take it a step further and make it a bit of an economic development piece. So directional signs to different amenities, maybe sponsored like Lions Club, stuff like that on it. So we picked that back up at the meeting, and we have since got a delegation to the ECDEV meeting on June 9th at 6:15. So the Morrisburg Waterfront Committee is going to go and meet with the Economic Development Committee and see if they're interested in partnering on that. I mean, ultimately, money-wise, the money comes out of the same pot, but we wanted to, if they're interested, we want it to be more of a joint venture as to what it actually depicts. So that's forthcoming. Outside of that, we spoke about the updates on our dog waste receptacles, which is going very well. Apparently, a lot cleaner. So that's very good. We spoke about our Earl Baker Park Recreation Fund, so the multi-use pad that we've been fundraising for. It looks like we're going to have the funding this year to be able to at least get the concrete pad in, is our goal. If we can get a little bit more funding, there's a potential to have boards up as well, but if nothing else, maybe we can at least get our pad in, have somewhere to put some ice this winter, and we'll go from there with funding for next spring. And we also spoke about the our crosswalk. We've got everything, all the parts and pieces are here, ready to go to get installed, and doing that in conjunction with the Cenotaph project. It'll be a memorial cross, as I've talked about before. So more or less the meeting was about updates around those items.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor. Iroquois Waterfront.
Yeah, thank you. I did not attend, as I attended the Canadian Club event that evening. I will rely on David Jansen to give us a report. I'm sure his first one will be that the Waterfront Committee did a lot, because I wasn't in attendance like you did the last time, so I just save you that bit.
The committee was lost without the deputy mayor there. We struggled to find our direction and get going. No, it was a good meeting. So that was on May 20th. Just this weekend, some of the committee members volunteered. So last year they'd planted some hydrangeas at the Waterfront Committee. as a committee. I will say last summer was not the best year to start planting things. So they lost a few in the drought last year, but they did up so they replaced a few and expanded their program a little bit. So they're excited to keep that sort of beautification idea going ahead. And at the same time, there was a few trees that were warranted within the arboretum that we planted. So that obviously if you plant 29 young trees, there's 1 or 2 of them that don't root, especially in a drought year. So we replaced a few of those. A lot of the meeting was spent, and I know the Iroquois Matilda Lions just released their media announcement about their play structure of the beach. So they did come for a delegation to the committee. We had a really good discussion on, exact location, sight lines, how they plan on fundraising, what the timeline looks like. So they're just going to, there's going to be an equal balance there to try and keep both parties informed. Outside of that, much like Councillor Vino, a few updates on a couple of projects that we were working on. The big one, slowly but surely moving forward with our Miyawaki planting garden. So that's a little Japanese style of garden/planting. And you actually plant really dense. The trees all challenge each other, and then you get a fast growth forest. So they're sort of earmarked a little area, and we were successful with South Nation Conservation on a grant a couple of years ago. So some of the funding from that previous grant we can use towards this. So we're working with South Nation right now. I know they're on vacation, then I go on vacation, so we're playing a little bit of telephone vacation game. But we're planning to meet up in June and sort of start planning, the next steps. We have a concept, we know what we want to do. It's start, who's going to do what and what sort of funding there. So I think the committee is really excited to see that come to fruition as well. Is just something different, a high density of trees, like a cool project to sort of hang their cap on. But that's sort of the highlights of their meeting.
If this vacation time's getting in the way of your work, we could cancel that if that's.
We are going to talk about the policy.
Very good. Thank you, Director. Library, affecting kind of South Dundas. Obviously, I kind of mentioned SDG Reads. We are continuing our reciprocal borrowing agreement with North Grenville. So that's folks that live in the Kentville Library region, and folks in SDG, we can borrow within each other's libraries. Really effective for folks that might live towards that way, work in Kentville, grab a book, or people that work in Kentville and live in South Dundas, they can borrow in Kentville or vice versa. So we don't see a ton of borrowing, but it's an option for families that do that as well. We reviewed the operational plan in our Q1 updates. We're expanding the Chrysler Library, so that's in conjunction with North Stormont. That's on their tab, but working towards that. And that time of year, we're doing a review with the Director of the Library Services. So that was our meeting last week in Maxville. Consent agenda. A, TS 2606, no removal hourly rates. B, resolution of the Town of Bruce Mines, Bill 97. C, resolution Township of Stone Mills, opposition to the changes of Ontario Freedom of Information Protection Act. D, resolution of the County of Prince Edward County vacant commercial storefront tax. E, resolution Madawaska Valley, Ottawa Valley Trade Corridor Improvement Project. And F, letter of support, temporary road closure, Highway 2 Iroquois Apple Fest and the OPP Golden Helmets performance. With that being said, a resolution that all the consent items on the agenda be received and filed for information purposes. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Ratification bylaw. Any notice of motions for tonight? Seeing none. Ratification bylaw 2653. Being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters to be dealt, resolution be passed in open council, signed and sealed. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Motion to call the chair at 8:15 p.m. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. And as we bring our council meeting to close tonight, something I have not done in the 3.5 years I've been sitting here, and it came to me today because today's my wedding anniversary. And when I gave my speech at the debate night in Matilda Hall, I said, if I was elected, not only would my family be my family, but everybody in South Dundas would be my family. So I feel like tonight I am celebrating my anniversary with all of my family, as I consider you all equals, staff, our council team, and the residents of South Dundas. So with that, I'd like to thank each and one of your families, Tom and your wife and kids, and Cole and your family and girlfriend, Danielle from Austin, and the two boys, Mark, to Michelle and Victoria. Thank you for your commitment to South Dundas, and tell your families that I say thank you. Thank you. Good night from South Dundas.